So good afternoon, Chairman. I can confirm it is just after 4 o'clock. The live stream has commenced and we are ready to start the meeting.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Development Control meeting of the 11th of November 2020. I would like to advise that today we will be using Zoom to provide a live stream to members of the public. Please can we ask that you bear with us as we are dealing with numerous internet connections and sometimes this can cause a slight delay.
Thank you, Chairman. Sammy Winter will be your Zoom host for today. Dean Mims and Chris Green will be here as officers presenting during the meeting. Matt Seven is here to offer IT support if required, and Sammy Winter will be clerking the meeting today. During the meeting, all participants except for the Chairman will be muted, and this should remain during the whole of the meeting unless you have asked to speak. May I take this opportunity to remind members that all members are invited to participate in the meeting, but would ask that you use the raise hand button, which can be found at the bottom of the participant screen, should you wish to speak on any matter. The Chairman will be notified of your request and he will then invite you to speak. Once you have been called to speak, please could we ask you to unmute yourself and then once spoken, mute yourself again. Anyone who has telephoned into the meeting will be invited to speak after all those that have raised their hands have spoken. When asking a question, please could we ask members to refer to page numbers within the report or agenda for ease to officers. If we have to adjourn the meeting, the Chairman will advise of this and the anticipated length of the adjournment. When voting on an application, this will be undertaken by a roll call of those members present. Once your name is called, please unmute yourself and respond accordingly. When confirming the minutes and noting delegated and appeal decisions today, unless any member raises an objection on these matters, these will be confirmed by assent. Members can only partake in voting on an application if they have been present for the entire discussion on an application. And thank you, Chair. If we could just move on to a roll call of members present. Councillor Annison.
Present.
Councillor Bird.
Present.
Councillor Fairhead.
Present.
Councillor Flaxman-Taylor.
Present.
Councillor Freeman.
Present.
Councillor Hammond. Councillor Hammond. Councillor Hammond looks like he's frozen. Councillor Lawn. I think we're still waiting for Councillor Lawn to join, Chairman, so I will try to keep going to get him on and I will contact Councillor Hammond as well. Councillor Mogford.
Is Monday 16? Is Monday 16?
Councillor Mogford. Sorry, Councillor Mogford, I didn't hear that. You're muted. You're still muted, Councillor Mogford. Thank you. You're unmuted.
Am I unmuted? Well, I'm here.
Yes, you are. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can see Councillor Hammond back.
Yeah, I'm present, Sammy. Sorry about that.
Thank you. That's okay. Councillor Myers.
Yeah.
Councillor Wainwright.
Yeah.
Councillor Williamson.
Yeah.
Councillor T. Wright.
Yeah.
And Councillor B. Wright.
Yeah.
Thank you. Chairman, to advise officers in attendance today, we have Caroline Watling, Monitoring Officer, David Gleason, Director of Planning and Growth, Dean Mims, Planning Manager, Chris Green, Senior Planning Officer, Rob Tate, Planning Officer, and myself, Sammy Wintle, Corporate Services Manager. Chairman, we can now start the agenda items.
Thank you, Sammy. I'd just like to advise that item number 5, land off Yarmouth Road, will now be brought forward. So we do that one first. And also, I'd just like to ask Caroline just to clarify regarding speakers for item 4 before we proceed, please.
Sorry, Chairman, just to confirm that will be items 4 and 6.
Yes, sorry, yep.
You're just muted, Caroline, sorry. You're still muted, Caroline. doesn't seem to want to let anybody. Oh, there you go. You're unmuted now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so the rule that we're applying in relation to deferments is that unless the application has been changed substantively or the recommendation in the report has changed, speakers won't get to speak again. So where there has been a deferment, if the applicant or agent or objector have already spoken, they won't get another chance to do so when the application is reconsidered. So if further, sometimes there's a deferment for a site visit, and sometimes it's for further information, which is what happened on the previous occasion in relation to these two applications. So the applicant or objector will be invited to comment in writing on the new information and only the new information, and the officer will read out in summary, if necessary, those comments on the new information. And I think another point to add, and I'm sure that Sammy has reminded members of this, is that only members who have been present for the previous occasion can participate and vote on that item today. So if you weren't present the original application report, then you won't be able to participate or vote on those items today.
And Chair, just to confirm, I will remind those members when we get to those applications.
Okay, thanks, Caroline, and thank you, Sammy. So we move to item number 1. Any apologies for absence, please?
Chairman, we have no apologies for absence today.
Thank you. Item number 2, any declarations of interest from any members, please?
Yes, Chairman.
Councillor Mogford.
I'm not being pedantic, but I feel I ought to declare an interest on the land at Scratby Road, Great Yarmouth, which is, I need to declare a personal interest because on reference page 32, paragraph 530, I am a member of the Broads Internal Drainage Board. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else, Sammy?
Chairman, I declare an interest because I'm ward councillor for Ormsby, so that covers all 3 applications, and I also am a member of the Internal Drainage Board.
Thank you. Anybody else?
No further hands raised, Chairman.
Sorry, Sammy,
Oh,
I'm on the drainage. Sorry, I didn't realise that. I'm on the drainage board as well. It's okay. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, then, so we move to item number 3 to confirm the minutes for the meeting held on the 14th of October 2020, which can be found on pages 5 to 14. Everybody happy with those minutes?
Chairman, if I could just say that as a substitution, we had it noted that Councillor Plant substituted for Councillor Bird, but it should read Councillor Graham Carpenter.
Yep, thank you. Okay, yep. So then we move to item number 5, which is the application land off Yarmouth Road, Ormsby. Chris Green, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just try and get this presentation up. I have unmuted. Back to Zoom. Right. Yep. Share screen. Share screen. Where's that? Oh,
Chairman, before Chris, just before you share your screen, just 2 seconds. I just didn't say that we didn't have any objections to those minutes, so those minutes can be confirmed on assent. Thank you. You can start now. It's fine.
Right. Slideshow. Oh God, where are we? Okay. Why is it not? Oh, sorry. There, right. Okay, now I need to right click and get my pointer up, don't I? Apologies, I think I'm there again. So this is a site that we haven't yet seen, insofar as the other 2 cases that are coming forward this evening are ones which were deferred from previous meetings. This site, I'll show you where it is in context with the others in a minute or 2, but just to start off with a screen showing the proposed site layout. It's been made as a full application for the development of 71 houses off Yarmouth Road in Ormsby to the south of Yarmouth Road. I'll now move on. Oh, I've got to use the buttons, haven't I? The arrow keys. Yep. Okay. So here's the site aerial view. You can see it's quite open farmland on that particular side of Yarmouth Road, with a continuous ribbon of development on the north side and a little bit of development on the south side around where this site is to go. The current village development limits are shown on screen now, and you'll see that it covers that ribbon of development on the north side and the properties along the frontage on the south side. And just to put this in context with the other cases that you'll be hearing tonight, I'm afraid it's slightly off the bottom of the screen. You can see a brown dotted line towards the central bottom of the screen where I'm putting the laser pointer now. That's the site that we're currently talking about. Of interest to note are the Foster Close site outlined in green and the other site in Scratby, again outlined in dotted brown. And the two sites are allocated in the emergent local plan, and the location of the village centre, let's say, in terms of where the shops are. I've now putting the pointer on where the school is, and I believe there's a nursery somewhere in this vicinity here. So we have a full landscaping plan as well submitted as part of this application. And this particular screen shows the proposed changes to the highway that will be funded by the applicant in order to produce a safe situation and to assist current parking issues with the properties that face onto Yarmouth Road. I've just put this one in because there is a ditch and bund shown to the south of the site that picks up, I presume it's designed to pick up surface water coming off the adjacent field. In fact, that's what it says it is, so got that one right. The applicant has submitted a few three-dimensional views around the site, and we have the house type drawings, which I'll just run through very quickly at this moment. Actually, that's quite an interesting one as far as it does show a certain amount of grouping of properties, something I've always been quite keen on, where you've got a terraced house group and a bungalow group coming together. And again, of course, the bungalows do provide a degree of adaptability as well within the site. I think it's all very difficult to take in this manner. I'm quite keen on developers giving us some three-dimensional axometrics to illustrate their proposals, but given there's a lot of different house types, it would be a clearer way of presenting it. But at least you had the three-dimensional views. So just to go around the site very briefly, photographically, I'll start off with this picture of the access track that leads along the boundary of the site next to the houses. Part of the proposal that the applicant has made is to provide rear access on behalf of those properties, which they hitherto don't have. I don't think the undertaking is to actually surface it up or anything. It's just to make provision for it. This is a view towards Ormsby Village, and you can see there in the distance the 30-mile-per-hour signs as they currently exist, and a similar shot, but just slightly further back to show one of the specimen tree that is unaffected by the proposal, I have to say so. And looking the other way towards Caister, showing you the group of, I think they were probably Rural District Council built houses. They are set up very slightly higher. There's a raised footpath along the front of them, and the land levels appear to rise slightly into the site. It isn't really clear on the photographs, but that's the impression you get when you stand on the site. So the key points, and the first one is the real major point behind the reason why we are in the planning balance suggesting a refusal, and that is we are deemed to have no 5-year supply at present. However, while we don't technically have a 5-year supply, the method by which the 5-year supply has been changed for quite some time now in the way that the NPPF is laid out. And that's central government policy, and it's more up to date than the way it was calculated all those years ago. So we're taking the view that it's not like turning a switch on and off. As you get closer to the date when the 5-year period of validity for the housing needs study, or housing needs statement, should I say, becomes expired, you can lend more and more weight to the new method. Now, normally, it's the case that when the NPPF seems to have had the effect in its calculation method of increasing the need for housing in many other districts where there's, for example, development areas such as Norwich, South Norfolk, etc., where their housing need has suddenly gone up. Ours is coming down. And part of the logic behind suggesting that we ought to be holding fire on these developments that are contrary to the spatial policies and the development plan, now I've lost myself slightly, is that if we are looking at something where we're a few months away from having a demonstrable 5-year supply, it seems rather foolish to be permitting all these things that will be there for 60 years at the minimum, probably 300 years. And the other thing to be said is that there's other site delivery that has been occurring within the that we've actually allocated sites in the new emergent plan. We've already started to grant permissions on some of those, and indeed our delivery rate has been improving in recent years. So we don't feel that we need to lend massive weight to the lack of 5-year supply, and that therefore we should be seeking to hold the ambitions of the development plan to a greater extent now. The existing pattern of development is very linear along Yarmouth Road, and this would clearly be a departure of that by breaking into that field and into that landscape. In terms of landscape impact, therefore, there's twofold. First of all, you've got development of depth taking place within open country or relatively open countryside. And secondly, you've got the issue of coalescence of settlements. At the moment, there isn't that much of a gap between Caister and Ormsby. And if you allow this and then a few other developments, very soon you will not have any gap at all. There's been a debate today about whether we should still be categorising it as Grade 1 agricultural. I've received documentation from the applicant just this morning, and I placed 3 slides which follow this slide into the presentation to try and expand on that matter. This particular site, unlike some of the others that we are going to show, does have a footway continuously back into Ormsby. So that is a point in its credit. The offers of highway improvement here are not that problematic insofar as they're achievable, and the money that's been put forward for speed limit reduction by traffic regulation order is likely to be supported in this instance by the county highways team. With regard to ecology, there are still some matters outstanding, but these are matters that can be finalised within Section 106 agreement, and details regarding local ponds, for example. Now we have the district level licensing scheme. It does seem feasible to overcome newt population issues insofar as you can make payment for enhancement elsewhere. So we wouldn't cite it as a refusal reason, but would say if members were minded to overturn the the recommendation to refuse, that it's something we want to see a resolution that said, can we see something within the Section 106 agreement for ecology, and equally for the highway improvement, which has been offered in the draft that the applicant has submitted. I think I mentioned the offer of rear access. As I say, it's to give space for those properties, so that's there as well. The site will deliver 20% affordable housing. We have had a discussion about treating it as whether it could be treated as a rural exception site if the developer was minded to go away and come back with such a proposal. The opinion is that it's too big to be a rural exception site. 21 dwellings even if you had 60% of them as affordable, that would be delivering rather a lot of affordables in that location, and we would consider that to be too much for that particular place, which does open the question as to whether an application for a smaller site as a rural exception might not still be a possibility, especially if it didn't break into the open countryside. I think that's something that the developer may wish to follow further, but the recommendation to refuse still has to stand. We did also receive, after writing the report, something from the healthcare providers, Norfolk and Waveney Sustainability and Transformation Partnership, asking for £132,000 by 106. The applicant has said they don't really think that that's necessary, and talking to planning policy, they feel that more justification would have to be provided by that provider in order to justify it. But if members were again minded to overturn the resolution to or the recommendation to refuse, we would suggest that we would want to resolve to include it in the section 106 if it is justified, and obviously we'd need to review further information if that was to be provided, but that was a bit of late information that came through. Just moving on to the next slide. The mapping within the core strategy, this isn't a terribly clear slide because the overlay doesn't come out terribly well, but you will see that there is a darker mauve area on the map that outlines where grade 1 agricultural land is according to our policy. That has been contested insofar as the applicant has carried out or provided some soil condition information, and I'll move on to the next slide. Go on, no, wrong way, that's it. And you'll see that he's centered the site there, and there's a description of what the site is and a statement that this sort of material is unlikely to give good growing conditions. However, our information is based on what DEFRA tell us, and our policies are based on what DEFRA tell us. And so there is this idea that the information that the mapping is based on is out of date. So we move on to the next slide, and this is not a terribly clear slide, but it shows the magic map agricultural land mapping that DEFRA have done for May 2020, and the outline is still identical. So on that basis, as far as we are concerned, the planning policy remains the same, and the refusal reason on agricultural land would still stand quite reasonably. If I just move on. So the resolution is to refuse as contrary to spatial planning principles. Sorry? Recommendation, wrong word, yes. Refuses contrary to spatial planning principles and the local plan with recent national guidance indicating a sufficiency of housing supply. To refuse on grounds of intrusion into open countryside where the rising landscape exacerbates the input to some extent and leading to further settlement coalescence, and to refuse on the use of agricultural land contrary to local policy and insufficient information provided or time to review with DEFRA. That's what I've said there. I mean, that's all I can say really on that. The information was provided to us very, very late, and the latest information we have still maintains our position. So that, I think, concludes the presentation on the scheme. And I'll hand over. What do I need to do to get out of this? Stop share?
Yes, please.
Escape. Okay, escape.
Thank you.
Stop share. That's worked, right?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Any councillors got any technical questions for the planning officer, please? Please indicate to Sammy.
No hands raised, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, I invite Mr. Terry Harper as agent to come forward and speak. Thank you, Mr. Harper.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can. Thanks, Mr. Harper. So you've got 5 minutes, Mr. Harper, and I'll let you know when you've got 30 seconds remaining
Lovely. 5 minutes from when, sorry?
from when you start.
That's the magic map, is it?
Thank you. Thank you to Mr. Green for the presentation. That was very fair, and I can't disagree with much of that, other than update a couple of pieces. Apologies for the tardiness, but with regards to the agricultural land grading, it's really simple. We're not saying any of your plans are out of date. What we're saying is those DEFRA plans are incredibly large scale, and I've seen them. They've all got a caveat on them that says these are indicative plans because they're large scale and you cannot assess individual sites. Savills, the head of Savills for the area, who's an agricultural expert, knows the land, he manages it for the landowners. He's emailed me today, which I've given your officers, that says it's not, it's grade 3. The large scale maps are indicative. If it is actually when you dig a hole and you look at the yields and you look at it's a scientific process, but fundamentally it is grade 3. And if Savills say it is, I've got no reason to dispute that. There is no land supply today. We're all agreed on that. I disagree with the borough's view that policy doesn't, we can look at what is going to happen. Policy doesn't include future speculation. It isn't an on-offs. The on-offs, which I don't agree with. Inspectors at appeal across England have been very clear on this. A council either has or does not have a supply. Nearly being there carries no weight. I've been in an inquiry myself where the inspector dismissed this very point. I've got no doubt about that. This application is not materially different from other applications we've seen recently, recommended for approval or approved, saying there's no land supply. Only 2 weeks ago, we just really want a consistent approach. Even without the proposed allocations, the latest housing figures have not been tested. The key to think here is the officers are saying there will be a land supply, but that's not a unilateral thing. They have submitted a statement to the planning inspector to say, can we please have the new standard methodology? This is our housing land supply, and they've asked the inspector to verify that. And that inquiry is 9 months away. So we've got 9 months in the air, I'm afraid, where we cannot confirm we've got a land supply without it having been contested. Whilst the standard methodology proposes to drop the housing needs, the new white paper is going to put them back up again. It's not as high as what it was, but the white paper proposes a methodology was going to put it up again. So I think we need to be very careful. Ormsby is interesting. We haven't seen any new housing estates in Ormsby for over 25 years. Bearing in mind both proposed allocations have issues. One landowner is struggling to show sufficient title to the access. The other one has said on the phone to me, that's for future generations. Nothing will get built here in this lifetime. Are we not to have any new homes in Ormsby for another 25 years? There's a reason why we're looking at this site, because the other two are dead ends. We're tried buying them. Badger want to build houses in Ormsby, you might have noticed. The housing and planning officers have had previous discussions I've seen on the file where they say it is acceptable as a housing exception site. I understand now they're considering us too big, it isn't. Whatever, as of right now, and I'm sorry I haven't been able to confirm to the officers before, the landowners and Badger we've done some viability testing and we can provide 30% affordable housing. So we're heading towards an exception site, if pushed, might get 40% affordables with no public grant. We'll meet halfway at 30%. That's a material consideration in itself. And with no affordable housing being provided, I think that's significant. House prices keep getting pushed up, especially in Ormsby. We haven't said we won't pay healthcare. We just believe there's no lawful obligation at the moment to tie that up. We can't be entering into anything, as I'm sure the borough can't, until it's confirmed as lawful. The policy doesn't support that. There are no statutory...
30 seconds remaining, Mr. Harper.
Thank you. There are some neighbour comments saying about the traffic problems. We propose to cure them with lay-bys, the rear parking, traffic regulation order and money to the distance. We're only 0.9 kilometres from the village centre. There are footways all the way there. The police and the parish council support our proposals with reducing the speed limit and the alternative parking. And the landscaping is not an issue because the paddock next door is going to be kept open, the frontage is held back, and there'll be new hedges and trees. I welcome any queries whatsoever. We've worked hard on this and we would like to see if we can satisfy any queries. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Harper. Any councillors got any technical questions for Mr. Harper, please? Just indicate to Sammy. Thank you.
Councillor T. Wright.
Councillor.
Thanks very much. Yes, Mr. Harper, you mentioned the quality of the land, and you questioned the fact that it's probably grade 3 rather than grade 1 agricultural land. Have you taken this up with DEFRA or Natural England to try to get the category changed?
Well, DEFRA or Natural England won't change these wide-scale maps. These wide-scale maps are large-scale indicative. What these maps all say, they've all got a caveat on them that says these are large-scale indicative maps at 1 to 250,000 scale. It is site-specific investigations that tell you what it is. Now, I can tell you, I've dug holes, I've been there with badger, Savills have been there. The land is too light and sandy to hold water and nutrients to give the nutrients of grade 1 land. You only have to look at land to see as dark and loomy where things will grow. The landowner has said he wish it was grade land and grade 1, we probably wouldn't all be here, but it is an unproductive field and that is the reason why we're here. And the head of Savills in Norwich has confirmed as grade 3. He's the expert.
Thank you. Anybody else, Sammy?
No further hands raised, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Harper, for your input. Thanks very much. So now I'll call on Mr. Brown to come forward as an objector to the application.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Mr. Brown. You've got 5 minutes, Mr. Brown, and I'll let you know when you've got 30 seconds remaining.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so obviously we live in a bungalow which is just opposite where this land is. We've been here for 7 years, just to put you into some sort of perspective of our situation. Where we live, there's a lay-by outside ours. It gets quite congested with vehicles at times, especially when the church is in attendance. It's hard to get on and off our drive because of the obstructions, and the views obviously sort of left and right you can't see. We lost our cat unfortunately a couple of years ago to a road accident out here because of the speed of the traffic. It is a 40-mile-an-hour limit. It is very, very fast flowing. You'd probably be here at the time when I'm actually speaking to you now. I'm sat in a lounge which is by the main road, and there's been several cars past me already at speed. It's hard to always judge the speed of vehicles when you're stationary yourself, but especially in the summer months, we see a lot of traffic flow into the village from I think from the campsites, because there's a petrol station. A lot of them come here to fill up and then disappear again. So camper vans, caravans, bikes, motorbikes. When I think the Grange have a function on Thursday evening. It is a dangerous situation out here, and I do feel I've got 2 young children. The footpaths into the village are absolutely diabolical. The footpath around the church, and I can't see any way that you're going to make that any wider. We tried to walk a dog as a family. We have to go single file. It's impossible to walk around there. So going into the village is it's very, very dangerous. The proposal for the site itself, it mentions about access, which is sort of directly opposite our property. I think as being the sort of the main access. I just noticed from the when the PowerPoint was just put up by the gentleman beforehand, that it was showing actually the access point has moved further along. I don't know whether we can confirm that is the case, but one of our main issues was that the access point to this site is sort of almost virtually directly opposite our property, and as I say, it's difficult getting on and off at the moment. It's like a blind bend. If you look at the mapping and you look at the sort of illustrations going into the village, is a blind bend as you go in from Caister towards Ormsby. I noticed the documentation we had from Badger mentioned that the road is actually not very busy, but I've not seen anyone come down here to actually do a proper site survey, traffic flow survey. I've seen no police officers down here doing any speed detection at all. Absolutely zero. And since 7 years, I've not seen a speed van in that lay-by outside our property at all. So there is that issue as well. So safety is probably the main concern from our point of view. Our daughter was hit by a car actually within the last 2 weeks. as she was coming home. She cycled to school. She's coming back, and she was clattered by a car on her elbow. Was going to speed, but didn't. Yeah, my wife's here sitting next to me. Car can fly around the blind bend in towards the village. Inside from the into the village from Caister, to get that right, and clattered her on the elbow and went to take her to A&E. So that it is. I think it's bad. It's bad enough, and I just think with the increased traffic flow, the increased, the speed of the vehicles that are coming up and down here, the bad footpaths into the village, and they are bad. You can't actually get into the village without walking on that footpath, which is it's very, very, very narrow. It's dangerous. It really is. So that is probably one of my main, or most of our main concerns. On top of that, the schools, both our children attend Caister School, so we're in a fortunate position. We managed to get them in there, but they're at capacity. My niece goes to Ormsby School, and there are issues there with capacity issues too. Trying to get an appointment down the medical centre is virtually impossible as well. At times they're very, very busy. I mean, obviously, given the current climate, it's difficult anyway. But sometimes you have to wait quite a while, or you have to move around to either Martham or one of the other coastal practices. And I just think with the extra volume of people as well, that's going to put pressure on. I don't know why we need these houses when there's
30 seconds remaining, Mr. Brown. Thank you.
Lovely. Yeah, sites been proposed at Foster Close, Scratby, coming into Ormsby from Cromer Road, and obviously the large development in Caister North, which that loads of people living there will actually share the same surgery. It's the same as coastal villages on Bramford Road. So that's pretty much it from us.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Are there any members got any questions for Mr. Brown, please? Could they just indicate to Sammy, please?
No hands raised, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brown, for your input and time. Thank you.
Thank you.
I understand we have no parish council wishing to speak on this item. Are there any ward councillors, Sammy?
We may have Councillor Freeman, Chairman. I'm not sure if he wants to speak.
Okay.
Please, if I may, Chairman.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Chair, and also thank you, Chris. I know it's not easy trying to put across these planning applications and get a balanced view. I believe the Parish Council, in the report, it says they did not have any serious objections other than would be my usual one of speeding and safety. And I absolutely have to agree completely with, I think it was Mr. Brown, Andy Brown. Yarmouth Road was the main road through Ormsby until we hit a trigger point and the bypass was built back in the late 1990s. Traffic flows down that road at a ridiculous A volume and B speed. It's quite noticeable that we have a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit, which is past the projected site. Recently, we put a SAM2 camera just past this site so we could just get an idea of the volume of traffic. The camera's been up for 4 weeks and all this data is available and it's been produced by a third party, so it's nothing that I've produced. But over the 4-week period, travelling from east to west, just over 30,000 vehicles went down Yarmouth Road. Now, I'm assuming that most of those people go home at night or go back from taking the children to school. So even if we were generous and only took 50%, we're looking at 45,000 vehicles over a 4-week period. Now, if you read the speed management strategy for Norfolk County Council, I know it's getting out of date, but the overlying thing they all say is that it's important that the volume of traffic is managed because of the speed, and it's the speed that does the damage. We know that speed kills. The speed camera also picked up that the majority of people that were leaving the 40 and coming into the 30-mile-an-hour limit were over the speed limit because people take their foot off when they get to the speed sign. So personally from me, and I know from the Parish Council, this has to be looked at and it has to be a scheme that would encourage slow driving. So what's the result? Well, as you know, I have been looking at traffic regulation orders in other parts of the of the parish, not with a lot of success, I'm sad to say. But I am pleased to say, if you read the notes, that Norfolk County Council have inspected the site, and they would be happy to work with us for a traffic regulation order, which would obviously have to be funded under a 106, and to move the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit way back, I hope, beyond the current properties on the right-hand side. It is speeding that is going to be the ultimate problem here. I do believe it could be managed. There's always going to be the question over, is this grade A or grade B or grade 1 or grade 2 agricultural land? It bounces about, but at the same time, we have to also consider that we're now being told that we're getting close to and approaching our land supply level. So I would like to hear the debate and listen to other people. Obviously, I don't want to prejudge this application. I'd like to hear what other people think. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Freeman. So we now move over to the debate. It's over to the councillors to decide. What do you all think?
Councillor Wainwright.
I'm muted. No, I'm not. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, obviously, it was good to hear from the objector and the agent, but I mean, obviously, this is down for refusal. But I've read the papers quite in depth, and you know, quite clearly, the parish council are not opposed to this. I mean, I know there's talk about a traffic regulation order, which is great, and that could be written into a 106 agreement. But you know, we do have speeding. Let's not forget about it. It's not just in Ormsby; it's throughout the whole borough. And you know, the police enforce speeding, and you know, it is done statistically. They look at they look at statistics, but you know, speeding is a problem. As I say, it's a problem within the borough, but that should not stop development. And it's quite clear there's been no big developments in Ormsby for 25 years, and this agricultural grade 1 land thing that's come up in all the papers tonight on all 3 applications, I believe is a bit of a red herring, because basically if we took DEFRA's maps, we would never build anything in the northern parishes. Quite happily plonk it in Bradwell or Belton or Castle, wherever. We wouldn't build anything in the northern parishes, which to my mind is ridiculous. Quite clearly, the landowner said that this land doesn't stack up. But some people might say, well, he would say that, but quite clearly they know what they're talking about. And as I say, you know, to keep using this argument about grade 1, I think is ridiculous. I mean, there probably are spaces, but as I say, if you come back and look at the map, we wouldn't build anything in the northern parishes, nothing at all. And this land supply issue, which we keep coming on to, quite clearly, the numbers are allegedly going to be reduced, so we would meet that supply. But at the moment, those numbers are not being confirmed and won't be confirmed for 9 months. And when you look at the government white paper recommendations, it says the 3 categories is growth, suitable for sustainable development, renewal, suitable for development, gentle declassification, and protected. Now, quite clearly, this development would probably fit into the first category. So, you know, this is all up in the air at the moment. But at the moment, we do not have a 5-year land supply. So I can see no reason to turn it down on that basis. You know, and if the developer is offering 30% affordable, I think that's a great move. I mean, we desperately need youngsters to stay in the villages. We need affordable housing. We need social housing. And just to turn them down seems to be ridiculous. There's no turning down of developments in, as I say, in Bradwell. They're not turned down. But, you know, I can see no reason to refuse this whatsoever. And I will certainly be looking to approve this with the conditions that have been talked about. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Wainwright.
Councillor T. Wright.
Thanks very much, Chairman. for the want of stating again what I've stated before and disagreeing fundamentally about the Grade 1 agricultural land, I think it is important, and I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that this land is or isn't of suitable quality. All I'm arguing the case is that on the maps that we're provided with, it says quite clearly that Grade 1 agricultural land. And I've studied this fairly carefully in terms of the amount of land that we have in the area. And I think Councillor Wainwright is wrong in saying that we wouldn't build anywhere, because there's a substantial amount of land, not necessarily Grade 1 agricultural land, that can and indeed has been built on. So I remain certain of that particular point. And I do understand what the developers have said in terms of saying, well, the maps themselves probably go over into different areas, but this is what we have before us to give us the evidence in terms of the Grade 1 land. But it's not just the only reason why the recommendation has been to oppose this. It's also the question that it's outside of the limits, the development limits. And you know, there may be the case that over 25 years there's been no development there, but there are proposals for other developments to take place in that particular area, and I'm sure that they would probably get the support of the committee if they're obviously comply with all of the regulations. So I'm certainly of the opinion, still of the opinion, that I will be supporting the officer's recommendation to refuse this. And I do take issue in terms of suggesting this 5-year land supply. And I've always argued this case that it shouldn't be about whether or not there's a need for land supply for housing. It should be whether or not the development is right in a particular area for the right reasons. And I know that there's been some in the past that I've opposed that have gone through. And I think this is one of the cases where this is going to obviously split the committee on this basis, because there are arguments to be held on both sides. But one of my major concerns as well is the fact that when you look at the overall plan of the area, you can actually see that this particular development actually takes a small proportion of the field up. And I can well imagine that once this field is, if it's given permission to build there, I can guarantee that within the next months or years ahead, that the rest of that field will say it's uneconomical to use for agricultural land, so we're going to have to build on that as well. And I think in terms of the highways, yes, it is an argument in terms of highways, and yes, there are problems all over the borough in terms of some of the other developments. But I think there's an issue that the highways authorities have to take on board in relation to speeding traffic. And one of my main concerns as well is if the Acle Strait A47 gets duelled sometime in the future, that road will be closed off to all traffic for 18 months for the development. That will mean all of the traffic going through the northern parishes to come through to Great Yarmouth. Now, that in itself is not an argument to oppose this particular development. I'm just trying to add some other elements in terms of the highways and the issues of traffic through these areas. And I'm certainly not opposed to any development in the rural areas, because I do believe that they have to take their development proposals for new housing in those areas to satisfy the needs for those particular areas. And I know the southern parishes have enormously taken an amount of housing, but I don't think that that in itself should be a reason to support housing to go into the northern parishes as well. Like I said, I'm certainly in favour of development in land that is appropriate and where the circumstances are there. But on this particular case, I have to say that I'll be supporting the officer's recommendation to refuse this particular application, mainly for the reasons that I've outlined. So that's my position, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Any other councillors, please?
Chairman, I haven't got any other hands raised, but Councillor Hammond did have his hand raised, but I'm not sure whether he's okay. He doesn't want to speak now. Just wanted to check. Oh, his hand's gone back up. Yeah, so Councillor Hammond, Chairman.
Councillor Hammond.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm inclined to be leaning towards the same opinions as Councillor Wainwright. We have had buildings in Ormsby in the last 20 years. Pointers East is classed as Ormsby, even though it's in Caister. So, and we have got coalition of villages because of that. So his report's not totally accurate, but
I can't see no reason really to refuse this. We don't have a 5-year supply, as Councillor Wainwright said. We might not have it, so we can't base on that. We've got to look at what's in front of us now. And I can't really see a reason not to support this, especially when the applicants come back and said that they're prepared to give 30% social affordable housing. It's a total win for us in the boroughs. In you know, to get that much in a site, we're going to get 20 low-cost houses in the Northern Village. It's a complete win. I can't see how we could turn it down when someone's offering that. I'm at a loss. And if Savills are saying that it's not grade 1 agricultural, and they are the main land agents in Norfolk, and they're saying it's not grade 1, who are we to disagree with them? I know DEFRA is higher up than them, but DEFRA wouldn't be marketing that land, Savills would. If they listed that as grade 3 for sale, that's what it would be. And they're saying that's all it is. So we have to take what they say as true. Yes, we're going to have to put some ecology bits on there to cover the newts. We're going to have to put a provision on for the highways improvements. But overall, it's a complete win. They've even been a good neighbour to the neighbours by putting the access to the back of all the properties there. So they don't have to park on the road. They could actually get access to the back of their properties. So it improves the highway along there. So I'm minded to approve against officer's recommendation. That's where I am. Sorry. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hammond. Anybody else wish to speak, please?
Yes, Councillor Williamson, Chairman.
Councillor Williamson.
Councillor Williamson, you're muted.
Sorry, my apologies. I think this is a very fine balanced decision, but I think it's contrary to our development plan. We spent a long period of time as a working party coming up with a development plan and outline to where the areas should be developed in the borough to be sustainable sites. This wasn't one of them put forward at the time. It's not been assessed on those terms. I don't think it's been a sustainable location, as some of the others are. The one which we're seeing later is far more sustainable than this one. This is out a long way on the Caister Road. And I think the other problem with it is it intrudes into the countryside quite a bit to the south. And there is an issue of coalescence in the future. My other issue is that whilst we can take the verbal assertion that the land is of low quality or lower quality, we haven't seen any details of where the analysis took place, how many samples were taken, where they were taken from, at which points, etc. It's very easy to tie one field, and the field may vary in its actual quality as you go across it. From my experience, having lived in northern villages for some time, a long while ago, those fields were actively farmed for a long period of time and successfully so. So I'm minded to go with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Any other councillors, please?
Councillor T-Wright.
Yeah, just to come back really on the grade 1 agricultural land issue. That it is clear that this is the this piece of land is covered by this map, and I think that's the guidance we should go by. If there is a particular issue with the quality of the land, it may well be a particular area, then okay, that's something that has to be looked at, but not by us. It's not our point. What we have to look at is the evidence before us here and now. And I would move, Chairman, that we agree to the recommendations of the officers.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Anybody else wish to speak at all?
No further hands, Chairman.
So we have a proposer. Do we have a seconder for Councillor Wright's proposal?
Second.
That was Councillor Williamson, Chairman, seconding.
Yeah.
And Councillor Hammond has got took his hand down.
Okay. Okay then. Just to make clear, we are voting to go along with the officer's recommendation to refuse. Just so that's clear. And at this stage, Sammy will undertake the roll call.
Thank you, Chairman. So just to be clear, members, we are voting on the officer's recommendation within the report for refusal for this application. Councillor Annison?
For.
Councillor Bird?
Abstain.
Councillor Fairhead?
For.
Councillor Flaxman-Taylor? For. Councillor Freeman?
For.
Councillor Hammond?
Against.
Councillor Mogford?
For.
Councillor Myers?
For.
Councillor Wainwright?
Against.
Councillor Williamson?
For.
Councillor T. Wright?
For.
Councillor B. Wright?
For.
Thank you. Chairman, that application is refused as per the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sammy. So we move back to item number 4. And just to advise that this application has been brought back to the committee from a deferral at the committee meeting held on the 14th of October 2020.
Thank you, Chairman. If I can just advise, as Councillor Barbara Wright was not in attendance at the last meeting when this application was considered, she will not be able to partake in the vote on this item. And just to advise the committee that we do have Councillor Lawn back in attendance now, so he can now take part in this application.
Okay, thank you, Sammy. So I invite Chris Green, Senior Planning Officer, to come forward. And the application is on pages 15 to 32, and that's across to you now, Chris. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm just trying to get this share screen again. And what do we do now? Top bit to go, and then slideshow. Right, okay. And that one, thanks, Tar. Whew. Okay. So this is the return of Scratby Road to the committee following its deferral, I think, on the 14th of the 10th. This first slide shows the extent of the earlier outline approval. Just to remind members, that was approved for 19, or well, I say, that resolution was to approve for 19 with a Section 106 agreement, which has never been concluded. But I think one can take that as a resolution to approve. And what is more, the draft local plan does show this land now incorporated into the village envelope, so it could be developed. The land to the south, however, remains shown as being outside. The green line shows the route back into Ormsby, and there'll be some further information on that and highways in a minute or two. So going back to a plan that you've seen earlier this evening, showing you the sites in relation to one another. The site that has just been, hang on, let's just get my pointer up, pointer options. We've just been discussing this site here. We've now moved on to this site here. You can see the allocated sites, the village centre, the location of the school, and again, the nursery over here. And the route, once again, into the school would be that way. So I'm sorry, I've shifted this round on its side so as you could get a slightly more enlarged view of the site plan. North is actually heading to the right-hand side of the screen as you see it. So we have a proposal for a new entrance here on a very, very slight curve in the road, but with a large landscaped area left, and proposal to place a footway linking back into the village along the site frontage. Funded by the developer. and there are further proposals to produce crossings and footways in this area here. County had asked for a speed survey if to reduce vision splays, but it has to be said that even at 40 miles per hour with excess speed, there is sufficient to achieve the necessary vision splays on this particular site. The layouts, again, I have been critical of some of the back-to-back distances, and the developer has negotiated some slight changes, but I would like to go further. And so if members were minded to overturn the resolution to refuse, then I would want to have a little bit more negotiation over some of the matters with regard to design and layout. But I don't think it's the sort of thing that would actually prevent members from making a resolution with that caveat, if they so chose, to be fair to the developer. And that's the layout of the approved scheme. Well, say the scheme that was resolved as approved by members, but where the 106 has not been concluded. And although, of course, if something was concluded tomorrow, it would become an extant outline consent. Just to go back to that one, you will see that its access was actually to come off Beach Road rather than off Scratby Road. My understanding is that may be difficult to form that access now, as the land is no longer in the same ownerships. And here we have a materials plan showing the same thing. This time I put it the right way round, with some material samples on the side there, just to give you some sort of idea as to the type of bricks that have been suggested by the developer. And a landscaping proposal which shows a, I think I'd characterised it earlier as a sort of tree belt, but the applicant was very keen to say to me, no, it would be trees with spaces in between them that would retain some degree of open view. I've made a point about some of these back-to-back distances. They are a little on the short side, although I believe the Rollersby and the Ben Acre form are both bungalows, so it's not significant there, but it is significant in the case here where you have bungalows and houses in relationship. And in this particular location, it is now up to 24 metres, so I'm not going to complain about that in design terms. And so just moving on again, I don't know. I'm sorry, it's got partially hidden underneath the screen where your images are being displayed. But if you can actually see this, on the right-hand side of the screen, there is a proposal for a number of different alternative footway improvements. Now, a trod is a rural footpath which has an informal surface. It does the trick of getting people off road and keeping them safe, but it is not the same as a surfaced footway that you might expect in a village centre or in a town centre. And the reason why I put the photo illustration next to it is so you get a clearer idea as to what precisely the outline drawing is showing you. And then moving on to the housing, again, they are very similar to the ones we've seen before because they're using the same or similar house types. You'll see that they have names that relate to places within Norfolk and Suffolk, and as a consequence, they are the developer's standard pattern of housing. Within that, of course, they can vary things such as material finishes to suit environments. I would just like to see more of grouping of buildings where you start to get larger agglomerations of building that create newer forms, let's say, than rather than just relying upon the same old thing. And I certainly, if members were resolved to approve this one, welcome the chance to negotiate further on that sort of matter. So we have a mix of smaller and larger houses. So just
Chris, sorry, I've just had a message. Some of the members can't see the pictures that you just show on the right because their cameras are on that side.
Yes, quite. I don't know how
you can drag the
can you
pictures
pick
across.
it up, and you can, yes, you can slide them up if you
You can pick it and drag them across.
I'll go back. I'll go back
You can
and
pick and
we'll
drag
have.
it across.
Here we go. I've moved mine to the other side. If you care to move your,
So if you touch your screen, members, you should be able to click it and move it across.
Pick it up with the mouse and drag it and drop it. You'll then be able to see the footways that are being suggested as improved. There's a sort of pale dotted line, which would be a footpath, and then there's a solid red line, which would be a footpath along the side of the road as an alternative. So there's a number of different options that the developer has offered to fund. I don't think he's offering to fund all of them, but that they would at least provide a safe route to school off the road. The problem is, of course, that the distance involved is still 1.9 kilometres to the nursery and 1.7 kilometres to the school. Now, the developers have heard that he believes that that sort of distance is within the bounds of reasonableness. I'll leave it to you as to whether you think that is a reasonable distance to travel to school by foot. So moving back, I'll just
thank you, Chris.
Quickly. Is that okay? Has everyone now seen what they need to see?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Well, I'll just flick through these again very, very quickly because I think we've seen most of them. Back to the photos. So this is the Pages Farm opposite the lay-by, which is opposite the site. That's looking from close to the junction with Beach Road, showing you the last of the new houses that have recently been permitted running round from Beach Road just to touch on to Scratby Road, accessed off Beach Road, and the site you can then see is beyond that point. And there's the back of those houses and the field that is the field in question. And again, showing the open views to the coastal strip, and in the distance the Methodist chapel, which is, I believe, converted. And the applicant is seeking to provide a continuous footway down to the point where there is a footway along the front of the Methodist chapel. One of the comments received back on that is from the County Highways chaps is that once you get beyond the Methodist chapel, there's then still a stretch of unfootwayed road before you get to the California crossroads, which I think is probably the place you want to get to. Having said that, I'll just carry on. That's the Beach Road into Scratby entrance, and you can see it's actually quite close to the local shop. I thought I had an illustration of no, I think that comes next actually. So I won't labour the point of 5-year supply. That's something we've effectively dealt with in the earlier discussion. Existing pattern of development. I think here what I'm trying to say is that Scratby Village has developed itself along Beach Road and left Scratby Road largely untouched as essentially a bypass of the village. And so this would break into that. And in terms of landscape impact, the landscape character assessment does make comments about views to the coast and coastal strip. I think it's not just whether you can see the sea, it's whether you can see distant views of the developments on the coast. So it is starting to eat into that, and of course it is also part of what would be a coalescing scheme, albeit probably quite some distance before you get to other major development. I've mentioned the routes to school. They can be made safe, albeit relatively lengthy. The Office of Highway Improvement, I think it's pretty certain that the delivery of the physical footway improvements, etc., can be achieved through the mooted Section 106 agreement. The speed limit, however, is something that the county have said they're not keen on. They believe that 40 miles per hour is a reasonable speed for that sort of road, and that given its bypassing nature, as far as they're concerned, their recommendation as officers would be for it to remain. That's not, of course, to say that the county councillors might disagree with that view. They're the elected members after all, but the officers' advice would be no. The offer on this one for affordable housing is also now set at 30%. That offer was made some time ago. And there is an offer of money for play space enhancement, which could be on the site. The clear preference of us as planners here is to have it somewhere else in the village, which is more accessible, because there are no other links into the village other than along the highway. And yes, a footway can be provided along the highway, but the community hall will be a better place for it. But it turns out that we had the council, parish council, had a meeting on the 9th of this month to discuss all this sort of thing, and they didn't really comment on that. But it turns out that they don't really have the power to comment, because the community hall and playing field are operated by a separate trust, and therefore it would be the say-so of those trust members rather than the parish council as to whether they could accept a play area there. If they could, it would be good, but at the moment it's another one of these uncertainties. All I can say with some certainty is that the developer has offered £25,000 towards that, or on-site provision. So going back to the footways, I think I showed this slide before. It does show the nature of Melton Road, the Link Road, and Station Road. But as I say, the developer has, I think, convinced us that it is possible to provide off-road footways along these routes. The landowner on Station Road has said, disputes whether this land is available, saying that he owns it and wouldn't allow it. But there's an alternative to that, and that is to put the footway on the other side of the road. So it's not impossible, to be fair. So the recommendation remains refusal over the spatial principles. Not only is it a case that we think that the housing supply will soon be improved, and as yet we don't know quite what the government's going to do with regard to requiring additional housing, given that the white paper again seems to suggest that they will prioritise enhanced delivery in areas where there's most demand. We've also got refusal on the failure to reflect the open form of the countryside and intruding into open countryside, and of course refusal on agricultural land in the same way as we had before. Now, before I finish, I do have to read out a number of different things that don't appear as objections in the report, because they arrived late, and I also have to read out something that's been provided to me by the developer at the last moment. So I will try and do so in précis form. I've got a report here that says I think this is an objection letter rather than a report directly from the parish council, saying they unanimously voted on Monday night on the 9th to object this application, and going on to say that the road's a 40-mile-per-hour road. It's the only link between the northern villages, and it's heavily commuted on and quite dangerous. And that the road is the main entrance into Scratby Village for holiday parks, and that obviously that as an economic driver is significant. Rather, it's much valued, the tourism, this letter says. It also goes on to say there's no local supply of housing issue to warrant building on Grade 1 land. And that there's a roadway ending directly into the adjacent field, so suspecting that there'll be further development pressure if this was permitted. The developer has stated that the residents weren't against the site, but as you can clearly see, the residents have given the facts, 100 have signed an online petition against the proposal. So that's that particular one. Then the formal response of the parish clerk from the parish council meeting says that the developer is going to put pathways from Scratby into Ormsby. These are narrow roads with no street lighting and would still be dangerous. On traffic, the main road is busy, especially at school times and the holiday season. The developers are offering £25,000 to upgrade play equipment. Scratby does not have any playgrounds. Well, that is true. Scratby doesn't have any playgrounds, but we were suggesting that it might be possible to provide one if members were minded to approve this on the playing field. But as I can't answer that question at this stage, because we simply don't know what the trust's opinion would be. So they're saying it wouldn't benefit Scratby children if it was built on their site. Grade 1 agricultural land, and developments in surrounding villages, including Pointers East and Scratby, Pontins in Hemsby and other areas have already been placed a strain on the infrastructure of our village. And Scratby does not have a doctor's surgery, dentist, chemist or church within the village. small coastal countryside seaside village with many pleasant views towards the sea. So essentially, they've said that they voted to object to the application. Then I have another letter from a gentleman who said that because he isn't able to speak, he'd like me to read this out. And again, all I can do is say that this is from a gentleman who spoke at the October the 14th meeting and raised the matter of Grade 1 agricultural land. And he's also criticised the way that we focused last time on county highways issues without talking about other reasons for refusal. And that the mentions that the county don't support the reduction of speed limits. And he goes on to say it should not be the responsibility of the parish council to clean up after the developer. I think this is in regard to having to provide mitigation via TROs. It goes on to say it will be difficult for committee members to put aside their political differences. I really feel rather uncomfortable about having to read some of this out. I don't think it necessarily is material to the planning case, but I will move on. Dean's told me to. Decision to defer with the eye taken off the details resulting in a fallout within the community and embarrassment of the parish council and a waste of public resources, he says. And I would respectfully ask that members of the committee add more detail to the motions and proposals to defer applications. Further updates. I've had a number of other objection letters, and again, I'll try and really précis them. 3 Gordon Road mentions agricultural development for tourism, and goes on to talk about the fact that the development for tourism is important, something I don't think we'd mentioned before, and houses don't fit into the tourism environment, and that California Crossroads is an accident black spot, and this was set a precedent. 25 California Avenue, complaint regarding the consultation process, as in the petition mentioned. 79 California Avenue and Beach Road both raised similar issues. And we have the petition with 77 addresses that's been delivered to us. Gordon Cottages makes points already raised, as does 16 West Road. 44 Nightingale Road talks about 40 mile/hour roads being too dangerous. Paddock Beach Road, the Paddocks Beach Road says that they're not objecting, providing their hedge is not disturbed and an 8-foot fence provided. 40 Beach Road says 25k for roads is helpful, and at least Badger are a smaller local company preferred to Persimmon. Tiny Toes, the preschool, writes to say they're the only preschool in Scratby and have no capacity, and that the other developments in the area will have an impact. And that they says that the UN Convention on Rights for the Child will be breached if preschool places are not available. And I also have from Terry Harper, who is not allowed to speak at this particular committee, a further letter that arrived with me an hour ago. He makes the point that the highway matters have been complied with in brief, and I don't think anyone's disagreeing with that. Overall, he says that the borough has struggled to provide a land supply for many years and still has no five-year supply today, and that's the key point. The policy doesn't include future speculation. I think I will comment at that point that it's not speculation because it's based upon a method of calculation that's nationally agreed. So it will kick in unless it's changed. So that's speculation as to whether it will change. He says, I've been to an appeal where a council advocated nearly there. That held no weight with the inspector and was part of a cost award. I think that would be true if we were talking about a simple case of according weight to a development plan that hadn't been taken past the inspector yet. But the point here is we're talking about a method of calculation that actually results in a lower figure that is derived from central government and is not in question. And then he talks about, you've talked about 7-year supply, he says, but that's only when the adoption of the new local plan occurs. And the point of that is we would have a 5-year housing land supply just by the calculation, plus if not, we wouldn't have the 7-year. The 7-year kicks in when we have the new land allocations. But the thing to point out there is that some of the land allocations have already been approved in advance of the local plan. He goes, even without the proposed allocations, the latest housing figures have not been tested and are objected to by many, so as to contested carry no weight until they've been through local plan inquiry to be settled next summer. Hence why officers have asked the local plan inspector to accept the proposed position, e.g. answers next summer inquiry in the air till then. So we're 9 months away from a robust and non-contentious land supply. Goes on, the report acknowledges this, but nevertheless recommends refusal in part for it being an unsustainable location. But 41 other approvals in Scratby, including 19 here, particularly now the connecting paths are allowed. Officers suggest the site is acceptable as an affordable homes exception site. Now, actually, that we had suggested in reality that it might be worth pursuing that, but without viability testing and indeed scale issues, it would need to be looked at. We were asked the question, how could we unlock this? And I was trying to be creative and helpful, but that's not to say that we wouldn't result in a smaller number. 30% affordable housing is 50% more than that required in policy. It's a significant material consideration. No allocations or opportunities otherwise in Scratby, and previous ad hoc schemes delivered nothing. Landscape issues are addressed. There are no coastal views here. It's confirmed it's not grade 1, it's grade 3 agricultural land. As I say, we would disagree on the basis of the previous discussion. Objectors, there are fewer than first appears. There are 2 conditional requests, 2 from the far end of Ormsby, 1 from Martham even. A recent flurry and a petition are based on wholly wrong information, which has turned the parish council's head to on wrong information. The facts I evidence are, all the schools are between a quarter to a third empty. Doctors have low patient per GP ratio and high NHS satisfaction. And I'd comment on this that we would agree that the figures that were provided by the NHS provider in the case of the earlier scheme did demonstrate that the local surgeries seem to have enough space. The request was actually for payments in that instance towards central NHS matters. And we still consider that we would need to dig down into that, as I mentioned at the time of the last discussion. Then goes on to say, just about all the objectors are people who moved to the village at some point and are welcome, I'm sure, but have to realise it's not reasonable to move in and expect it to be cast in aspect with no room for others. It's a good quality scheme by a local house builder, less than a typical PLC mainstream builder in scale, and would meet local housing need in a sustainable location where the public benefits include a 30% level of affordable housing, significant off-site highway works in response to this committee resolution last month, more than outweigh any adverse impacts within the terms of the NPPF, and we ask you to consider this application accordingly. Beyond that, I think that should conclude the presentation insofar as I think I've dealt with the stuff that's been received within the last week since completing the report. Thank you.
Okay, Chris, thank you. Before we move on, Sammy's just got to clarify a point that she made earlier.
Yeah, apologies, Chairman. For this application, it was actually Councillor Myers and Councillor Bird that were not present at the last meeting, so they cannot vote or partake in any discussion on this item. Councillor Barbara Wright was here for this meeting, so can take part in this application. It's the next application that she can't. So Councillor Bird and Councillor Myers cannot vote or partake in this item.
Okay.
Thank you.
So yes, we move to the technical questions. Any technical questions for Chris, please?
Councillor Williamson.
Councillor Williamson.
Sorry, Chairman, his hand was raised and went down. Thanks.
Sorry, went up and down twice. Sorry, I apologise for that. May I ask Chris, there was a comment from Highways about they are objecting to the small amount of money being offered for footpath improvements, etc. It's 25k. Has the developer offered any extra cash to improve the footways? And secondly, another question regarding the analysis of the soils. We keep hearing there's analysis being carried out, got no data. Could we know in future, perhaps, if people are going to carry an analysis of this soil, they could do a spot check and show us we're on the site, how many plots have been taken, what the analysis is. Thank you.
Right, the first question about highways, the developer is offering to pay for all of the footway improvements running back into the village to actually conduct and carry out that work. The 25k that's mentioned is additional money towards either seeking speed reductions via a traffic regulation order or other measures that signal lower speed that could be carried out by the parish council. For example, I know at Corton, when I was on the parish council there, we funded some these dummy gates that stand alongside the road 90 degrees to it and signal the entrance to a settlement with the idea that it will flag up the need to drive more carefully. And that's the sort of thing that parishes can get involved in funding. So it is more than 25k effectively. It's the work being conducted and 25k on top of it. Now, the other question about agricultural land and its status, I only received the information that I received this morning, and I cobbled together the slides that you saw in the previous presentation today, and got confirmation from our strategic planning colleagues that the Magic Map data that DEFRA publish, which is up to date for May 2020, still categorises the land as grade 1. There may indeed be other evidence, but we would need to run it, I think, past other experts to really understand whether it was compelling or not. And as I say, our policy is based upon what DEFRA say. I think as with the previous case, one would need to convince DEFRA that it should be recategorising the land because it is the category that we use to base our policy. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else, please?
No further hands raised, Chairman.
Okay then, Sammy. So as this application was deferred, there is no further entitlement for public speaking on this application. Therefore, we will now move to the committee debate and decision. So it's over to the councillors.
Councillor T. Wright.
That's
Just
right.
very quickly, I mean, we've been over these this discussion before, Chairman. I don't think there's any reason to delay that. I don't think that there's been any change from the previous meeting, which is substantial enough to change the recommendation. Certainly, going back to my previous comments regarding the grade of land and obviously the recommendations from the officers, I would move that we endorse the officers' recommendation.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak?
Councillor Wainwright.
Chairman, yeah, sorry.
Sorry, Councillor Wainwright, then Councillor Freeman. Thank you.
Councillor Wainwright.
Just muted, Councillor Wainwright.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, I am disappointed with the officer's recommendation. I mean, I think the writing was on the wall at the last one, really. But, you know, once again, 30% affordables offered. We're talking about 7 affordable rented houses. We're talking about 6 shared equity. And we're talking about 14 two-bedroom houses. These properties are desperately needed in the borough. There is a shortage of two-bedroom accommodation. There is a shortage of good rented accommodation. And basically, we've got the opportunity here. The highways issues can be sorted out. We've heard that with additional monies. Again, I can see absolutely no reason to turn this down. It's just another one where we're talking about the grade 1 again, and we now need data and we need soil samples, whatever. At the end of the day, as I said before, unless we build in these northern parishes and provide accommodation for the youngsters in those northern parishes, we will not build anything if we keep using this argument about grade 1 agricultural land, which nobody farms anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Freeman.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. And thank you, Chris Green, I can appreciate it's not easy trying to collate everything and to give a balanced view. As you are aware, obviously I'm ward councillor for Ormsby. There's been a lot of consultation with this developer, and I've been very, very clear from the outset. And everybody who knows me is that, you know, I didn't become a councillor to join a popularity contest. I've tried to be there to serve the people. One of the issues that I've always said the whole time along is that of speed. And I know you think I'm a crack record, but speed kills. And you can have as much affordable housing as you like, and you can have nice landscaping, and you can have nice design. But if you haven't able to curtail the people who speed along there, then we have a problem. As you know, if you look at page 19 of your report, 5.12, it's a great sadness to me that Norfolk County Council will not recognise that we need to have a speed reduction. The speed along there used to be 60 miles an hour when I first came to Norfolk 50 years ago, and it was revised to 40. And they will not revise it to 30. They obviously have their reasons, and it's not for me to criticise them. They're the professionals and I'm not. But I'm going to use policy of my own, which is called common sense. People drive along that road because it's the only road. It takes the traffic north of Caister through to the northern parishes. There is no other route. And the problem is that the speeding through the village is totally unacceptable. You've heard people saying about accidents down at California Crossroads. There's been numerous accidents down there. We've had near misses at the junction of Beach Road. And I was very much hoping that we could have been able to influence Norfolk County Council with a traffic revision order, that we could have avoided having these 19 properties coming out onto Beach Road, which will be a bigger nightmare. But unfortunately, we can't. And I must say that I'm extremely disappointed because, as I pointed out last time, we had a discussion that the speed limit drops as you get to Newport, and it's 30 miles an hour all the way till you get to Hemsby, with no junctions, no houses and no roads. So I find it very difficult to understand. And I am saddened, but safety has to be a priority in my book. And I would be, I think, being very unfair on myself, because for 30 years, I've always tried to do the right thing, especially as far as safety was concerned. And not just in our parish, it's an issue all across the whole of the borough that people will not drive at the correct speed limit. And we had an opportunity to do something. Unfortunately, it appears that we can't. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Freeman. Anybody else wish to speak, please?
No further hands raised, Chairman.
Councillor Tony Wright proposed to go along with the officer's recommendation to refuse. Have we a seconder for that, please?
Yes, I'll second that.
Councillor Fairhead.
Okay then, so Sammy will now do the roll call to go along with the officer's recommendation to refuse the application, and I hand you over now to Sammy.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Annison.
For.
Councillor Fairhead.
For.
Councillor Flaxman-Taylor. For. Councillor Freeman.
For.
Councillor Lawn.
For.
Councillor Hammond.
Abstain.
Councillor Mogford.
For.
Councillor Wainwright. Sorry, you've muted yourself again, Councillor Wainwright.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Williamson.
Against.
Councillor T. Wright.
For.
And Councillor B. Wright.
For.
Thank you, Chairman. That is refused as per the officer recommendations.
Thank you, Sammy. So we now move to item number 6, which is the application land off Foster Close, Ormsby. Just to advise that this application has been brought back to the committee following deferral at the committee meeting held on the 16th of September. And at this point, I pass over to Chris again.
Chairman, sorry, if I can just confirm, this is the application that Councillor Barbara Wright will not be able to partake in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, good evening again. Right, what do we do? Oh, share screen and double click on that and wait for that to stop and go slideshow and go start. Where are we? Where's from beginning, right. Oh God, it's gone right, before I do commence on this one, there's something I do need to say, and that is that the recommendation has changed. And I noted that earlier we were given advice by the monitoring officer that public speaking was not being permitted because, or where in a case where something was brought back and where the recommendation hadn't changed. That's not the case here. So I do have to ask the chair, or the monitoring officer through the chair, how we should handle this going forward.
Caroline, could you just come in there, please?
Sorry.
Yeah, so that's absolutely right. So that rule I have said applies about not giving speakers a second chance unless the application or the recommendation has changed. So that being the case, for this application, we would allow public speaking. So I don't know whether that has been communicated to, it probably won't have been communicated to those who wish to speak. So it may be that we need to defer the application further to give them that opportunity. I don't see another way around it, unfortunately.
Chairman, if I could just come in,
Yes.
I know that they were told that they couldn't speak because on this application, but there is, as an item of any other business, to have a meeting in 2 weeks' time. So whether members would be minded to consider.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I mean, listening to the monitoring officer, I think that's very important that if people can now speak, they should be able to speak. And I'd like to really propose that we do bring this now back to the next meeting in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, could I clarify that there were people who wished to speak, the people who would have wished to speak on the application, given that the recommendation has now changed, do they still in fact need to speak? Were they from what position were they intending to?
Well, I can confirm, Chair, that we have two speakers at least. The applicant wanted to speak, and I have a letter here which says it is disappointing I will not be allowed to speak. And I also had an objector who wished to speak as well. So I think there was some demand for that.
Yes. So yes, I feel that should come back so everybody has their voice. If the committee are in agreement with that, that's what I think we should do for fairness.
Chairman, we do have two hands raised. I don't know if you want to take.
Okay, yeah.
Councillor Williamson.
Yeah, Councillor Williamson.
Sorry, Chairman, could you just take the slides down so we can see the people?
Oh, yes, sorry. Stop share, yes. There we go.
Okay, yeah.
Thanks, Chairman. Yes, I think without the people being able to speak, it'd be a miscarriage, really. We need to allow the people to speak.
Yep.
And I think if the applicant wishes to speak, I mean, this is one of the ones which will be very finely balanced again. As in a sustainable position, I think it's all right to the applicant to be able to speak, and I expect an objector as well. So I would support your proposition.
Yes. Who else wanted to speak? Sorry.
Councillor Flaxman-Taylor, Chairman.
Councillor Flaxman-Taylor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Mine was also in agreement to the Chairman. I think we need to bring this back, definitely, just to give people the chance to put their opinion across, especially if that's made that much of a change to the recommendation.
Yes, thank you. Is anybody else wish to comment on that at all?
No further hands, Chairman.
Do we have to vote on that, Sammy, or Just
if there's no objections, if anybody's got any objections, if they raise their
Okay.
hands,
so we've
we
got
can
no
take-
objections.
we could take it on assent that this item
Yeah.
be deferred
Yeah.
and be brought back if members agree to have a meeting in 2 weeks' time.
Yes. Yeah, if that's okay, we'll bring that back in 2 weeks' time if there's no objections to that. Everybody happy with that? If not, say no. No.
Yep.
Yep.
Chairman,
Okay.
I can confirm that can be confirmed on assent that this item be deferred and be brought back to a meeting in 2 weeks' time.
Okay. Thank you. So we move to item number 7, which are the delegated decisions between the 1st to the 31st of October. Members, just to note those decisions what have been made. And just to confirm in any other business on item number 8, that there will be an additional development control meeting will be held on Wednesday, the 25th of November. And those links will be sent to members shortly. So at this point, I'd like to close the meeting at 17:47.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry,
Sorry,
yep.
sorry, Mr. Chairman. With regard to the meeting on the 25th, I mean, this is obviously the first thing I've heard about it, basically. But I do have a Labour group meeting that night, which has been arranged, is in the diaries. And, you know, quite clearly, now I've got to shift all that about because all my members on this committee will obviously not be able to attend, and I won't be able to send substitutes either. So, you know, these meetings are being put in and changed at very short notice without consideration given to the diary invites that are already in the diaries. And this is in my diary and was put in by Sammy, I think is wrong. I think members, certainly the lead member of this committee on all parties, should be consulted before this is done. So if this goes ahead on the 25th, at the moment, no Labour councillors will be attending.
Chairman, the meeting will still go ahead. Will be 4 o'clock. I know the Labour group meeting is at 6. Would that be?
Well, as long as we can be assured that it will be finished by 4.
So, I mean, I don't know what's on the
How
agenda.
many items is needed?
We will, what we will do, members, if members are happy for us to try to progress with the 2 weeks time, the 25th November, I will have a word with Dean and the chairman about how many items we have on that agenda.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair enough. But as I say, we do need to be at our meeting at 6.
Yeah,
That's fine. Noted. Thank you.
These extra meetings, I mean, there are a lot of planning applications coming forward. I have spoke to Dean and Sammy that we keep these items fairly low. I would only like to see 3 and no more. You know, at one point there was going to be 6 on one meeting. I don't want that. I feel as if we sit here that long, people will get very tired and things won't be done correctly. So that's the reason at the moment why there are generally just a few more meetings to try and help to, you know, look at these applications on a fair basis. Okay.
But just say, Mr. Chairman, I'm not complaining about that. I fully understand what you've just said. I'm just saying if we could keep it to 3 so we can finish by 6, that would be appreciated.
Yep, that's fine.
Sorry, Chairman, we do have Councillor Hammond and Councillor T. Wright wanting to speak, if possible, please.
Yeah, Councillor Hammond.
Yes, yeah. At the start of this, we were told we were going to probably have meetings every 2 weeks. So we did know at the very start of COVID, we would be having a lot more meetings. So really, we should have kept Wednesdays open.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
excuse me. We never said that.
Yes,
I mean,
we did.
when we set,
yes, we did.
We were told.
We were told at the start.
Members. If I can just remind you, members, that we are still live on YouTube. So if we can just keep this to the meeting and the meeting only, please. We will obviously keep you posted on what meetings that we will have coming forward. We will look at what items are put in. It's been noted that there is a meeting at 6 o'clock on that Wednesday as well. So we will take that into account. Thank you.
Thank you. Who was the other person who just wanted to speak?
Councillor T. Wright.
Just very quickly, Chairman. I certainly agree with deferring that particular item, but also the issue regarding the amount of items on the agendas. I think if normal circumstances were that we were in committee face to face, I think that's different. Listen to a number of meetings, but sitting on a screen, I think it is more difficult. I won't want people to get the impression that we're just saying that we're getting too tired after 2 or 3 hours. The reality is planning meetings do go on, but it's totally different sitting on a screen looking at the
Definitely,
screen for
yeah.
that length of time. So I think for those reasons, I think we've got no other thing to do but other than to accept that we have to meet as many times as possible to get through the
Yes.
plan.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Nobody else wish to speak?
No further hands,
No.
Chairman.
Okay. So I close the meeting at 17:51.
Thank you. If I could just
Thank
ask
you.
members to stay on until I just let you know the live stream has commenced. Sorry, has finished, not commenced.